Steve Jobs, former CEO and founder of Apple, prohibited his own children from using the newly released iPad that he and his company actually invented. He said, "We limit how much technology our kids use at home." Apple's current CEO, Tim Cook, stated, "Apple products aren't meant for constant use. I'm not a person that says we've achieved success if you're using it all the time. I don't subscribe to that at all." Sean Parker, who co-founded Napster, and he was an early investor and the first president of Facebook, now calls himself a conscientious objector to social media. He said, "It's exactly the kind of thing that a hacker like myself would come up with, because you're exploiting a vulnerability in human psychology." The inventors, the creators, it's me, it's Mark Zuckerberg, it's Kevin Systrom of Instagram, it's all of these people. We understood this consciously and we did it anyway. When they were building Facebook, the thought process was, Sean Parker says, to quote, "How do we consume as much of your time and conscious attention as possible? We've got to figure this out." He also says, "God only knows what it's doing to our children's brain," referring to social media. Snapchat founder Evan Spiegel, he imposes an hour-and-a-half limit of screen time on his kids per week. What do they know? That's less than 15 minutes a day. In contrast, the typical parent averages 11 hours of screen time a day, and children and teens average 9 hours of screen time a day. Most have unlimited access to almost everything that they want to behold while they're online, while these tech insiders limit their own personal use and allow little to no access at all for their own children. What do they know? Chamath Palihapitiya, an early senior executive at Facebook, he allows 0 screen time for his 3 children, ages 5 to 9. None. What do these founders know that we don't know? He says, "Many of us have grappled with the unintended consequences of the products that we built. Social media platforms in particular have been used and abused in ways that we, their architects, never imagined. We have created tools that have changed the fabric of how society works." When the founders of all the tech that we love are talking like this, perhaps we should pause for a moment and listen. What do you think? So why are sociologists, psychologists, and neurologists, why is the World Health Organization, why are world governments so concerned and scrambling to find answers on why our children are struggling developmentally, and why are our young people being impacted with increased mental health issues? What's going on? These giant technology companies, they give screens and they give apps to schools for low or no cost, yet many of these same tech leaders send their children to no-tech schools, like the Waldorf School. What? Why is that? What do they know? What are they so concerned with? Why such different choices than us? I just wonder what's going on. What does the tech world know that we don't? Well, one of the problems is known as brain hacking and addiction coding. Brain hacking is the application of techniques and technologies to affect an individual's mental state, their cognitive processes, or the brain's level of function. Basically put, brain hacking is the term that we use to explain how Silicon Valley engineers our phones and our apps and our social media to get us hooked, even addicted, and to hijack our human thinking and our actions. So when I look at the world and I survey what's going on, I know as a Christian, and not everyone here may be a Christian, but here's what I've learned. That there is a very real war going on for our souls.
Amen.
God on one side, who wants to, by the way, as we read in Romans 12:2, wants to transform and renew our mind. And on the other side, we have Satan, who wants to deform and degrade our minds. And the devil will use anything, including, if we're not careful, he'll even use our screams. But I'm here to tell you, you can take a deep breath, because I'm not here to take away your tech. I thought that would be like a big amen. I'm not here to take away your tech. I'm a techie guy myself. I've got all the little toys. I've got my Apple Watch. I got it all. I enjoy tech. It helps me in my life. However, it was starting to take over my life. Can anybody relate to what I'm saying? If you're honest, come on. So I've learned over the last number of years of researching these subjects, I have learned that you can have an online digital life, and it can be for the honor and glory of God. It can be there to help you develop wonderful relationships with other people, and you can do it without getting addicted. You can learn how to control tech so it doesn't control you. So Uncle Christian's not here to rip away your tech. If you're addicted and you have some issues, you might need to take a break. That's between you, God, and your parents. Or you, God, and the parent. The parent themselves have issues. Amen? Amen? So this is not a young person problem. This is a human brain problem. So only if you have a human brain is this going to be a problem for you. Some of you might be excluded from that. Romans 12:2 says, "Be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and the perfect will of God." I'd like to introduce you to Tristan Harris. Harris has been called the conscience of Silicon Valley, and he worked with Stanford Persuasive Technology Lab. He's highly educated, and he was a design ethicist at Google. This is how you ethically steer people's thoughts. Eventually, he quit Google. His conscience would no longer permit him to take part in controlling users' behaviors by unethically manipulating their online experiences. During a very interesting recent 60 Minutes interview, Harris exposed what the tech industry, he's one that's come out of it, and he's saying, we've got to talk about what's going on. He exposed what the tech industry is doing to its loyal customers to reporter Anderson Cooper. Harris explained, "Your phone is like a menu, and it is always being populated by choices, whether it's through notifications or what shows up on the feed, and people think that this is neutral. But what they miss here is that there is 1,000 engineers on the other side of the screen whose job is to put whatever should be on that menu that will capture your attention." Do you think parents understand the complexities of what their kids are dealing with when it comes to their phones, apps, and social media? No. And I think this is really important, because there's a narrative that, I guess they're just doing this like we used to gossip on the phone. But what this misses is that your telephone in the 1970s didn't have 1,000 engineers on the other side of it who were redesigning it to work with other phones and then updating the way your telephone worked every day to be even more and more persuasive. Holding up his phone, Harris further explained, "This thing is a slot machine. Every time I check my phone, I'm playing the slot machine to see what did I get." This is one way to hijack people's minds and to create a habit, to form a habit. What you do is you make it so when someone pulls a lever, sometimes they get a reward, an exciting reward. And it turns out that this design technique can be embedded inside all of these products. So whether we are young or whether we are old, we all love reward. There are three actual psychological needs we have as human beings. One is social connection, the other is novelty, that means the new, and the other is reward. This largely drives most of our decision-making processes. So the brain has what's known in it a mesolimbic pathway, or we'll call it the reward pathway. And when we perform some sort of action that satisfies a need or fills a desire, then a cascade of biochemicals are released to help us feel good. And then when we feel good because of what we just did, we will want to repeat that and do it again. And this feel-good neurotransmitter is known as dopamine. Anybody ever heard of dopamine? Well, we have a brand new program. This message I'm sharing with you is out of a brand new seminar series we're going to release very soon. It's called Digital Dopamine. How iTech is transforming our minds. Engaging in a dopaminergic activity, that means a dopamine-releasing activity, it actually increases the levels of our dopamine in our brain, exciting that reward pathway, telling us to repeat whatever we just did to get that feel-good feeling again, like I said. So basically, think of it this way. Dopamine makes us want stuff. We all like how dopamine makes us feel. Sharp and ready for reward, and it's God-given. God gave us this wonderful reward pathway. And so once we start consuming the object, or have achieved that sought-after thing, another neurotransmitter is triggered called serotonin. So our serotonin levels start to come up. And serotonin is important because it brings a sense of satisfaction and achievement and peace. So we start off with dopamine. It drives us, it makes us seek, it makes us go after. And then serotonin comes in. I'm liking this. Serotonin does something even more important. It actually increases what's known as gamma-aminobutyric acid, or GABA. Now, we're not going to get any more scientific than that. Think of GABA like the brakes in a car. And GABA is very important because, listen, it dials down the stimulating effect of dopamine. So we just don't want our foot on the accelerator, which is dopamine. We just don't want the foot on the accelerator all the time. We have to have it dialed down, or you're going to keep the reward pathway overstimulated, and that creates some mental health issues and other neurochemical issues. So GABA is important because it dials down that stimulating effect, and it allows serotonin to make us feel calm and contented. So once you're chasing, you've achieved that thing, you want to feel like, I've accomplished, this is great. And so without serotonin, without GABA, we never get to that place to where we're satisfied. Kind of like in the surfing. Never satisfied. Why? Dopamine, 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 dopamine. We don't allow the serotonin to come up. We don't feel that satisfaction. The GABA doesn't come in to dial it down and put the brakes on. Could this lead to problems? Indeed it does. So many of us just keep striving and keep going because of this dopaminergic activity. This means dopamine activating activity. And indeed our smartphones, our screens, our devices create this environment for us. So those who are online, using our smartphones, our tablets, our computers, we have to be very careful because of this overstimulating effects that these devices can have and these apps can have on our brains. Because what happens is, it's like juicing the brain. In fact, that's a scientific term they'll even use. It's a lower term, but they'll say when we're on these activities, depending on what we're doing, we can be juicing dopamine, like the little animal, and they're pushing that little drug button pretty much in the cage. And so since we move to different items so rapidly, we go from this app to that app, we go from this post to that post, from that snap to this snap, we're moving back and forth, we hinder the serotonin from being released, and therefore we don't come to that place of ever being satisfied even while we're on our screens. Because the dopaminergic activity is non-stop. Go, go, go all day long. Eventually, the consistent overstimulation can have serious side effects. Developmentally and mental health issues can also begin to surface. When you think about this, what most people don't understand is when people take street drugs, illicit, illegal drugs, the reason they're so addicting and sought after is because it floods the reward pathway with dopamine. It's a direct hit on the frontal lobe where we process and have the higher function of the brain, and it floods that reward center with dopamine. And so the drug addict will actually use again because they want to experience that high flooding of dopamine. Amazingly, the same response happens in the brain when we're engaged in overstimulating screen time activities. The same thing happens. Those who gamble, for example, they know the power of those slot machines. Harris is talking about the slot machine, and he says it's just like, our phones are just like these little slot machines. In fact, a person who's addicted to gambling, if they were to walk even as they're driving toward the casino, not even near it, and as they walk into the casino, they will have a dopaminergic experience. Dopamine will flood that reward pathway because of the potential for the dopamine experience. Just walking in, it starts to stimulate dopamine. And then he gets that dopamine hit, he starts looking around in anticipation, all the lights are twinkling there and they're starting to attract him. They walk around deciding what machine are they going to use. Machines are lit up making powerful visual and audible invitations. One catches their attention, dopamine. Then the money is inserted into the machine, dopamine. The excitement grows when they push the button and the wheels start spinning, or they pull the handle, and all of a sudden, here comes what's called the magic of maybe. Our brains love the magic of maybe, and that's what's built into our devices. The magic of maybe. It's this, oh, ooh, ah, lights. As that person is sitting there, the wheels begin to spin. It's impacting our visual and auditory cortexes, and the dopamine continues to kick in. This is exciting. I really like this. And then the first wheel stops, dopamine. The second wheel stops, dopamine. The third wheel stops. Oh, I lost. Disappointment, stress, cortisol starts going through. A stress hormone goes through your blood, and guess what? All of this is built in on purpose because casinos discovered that if they let people win and lose and the reward schedule is randomly placed, the thrill of the unknown, the magic of maybe, the gambler stays longer, becomes addicted, and loses more money. So let's bring this home to our pocket slot machine, our smartphone. If you've had your smartphone for a while, just the act of pulling the phone out of your pocket begins the reward process. Why? Because our brains have learned from the thousands of times before when we pulled it out, we took that phone out, there's this associated promise of a dopaminergic, dopamine activating activity. So the habit to get on our phone is developed. Why? Because, man, it makes me feel good in my brain. The magic of maybe. What's there? The unknown. The desire for the new, which stimulates this dopamine. And now the chase is on. I pull the lever, if you will. Or I enter my password to gain access to my sweet virtual world. Oh, I'm in. In fact, they've measured it. There's actually a feeling of relief when you get on your phone. Why? Dopamine. The magic of maybe, baby. Here comes that feel-good neurotransmitter. I pull the lever. The wheels start spinning, as it were. Oh, the app icons are so colorful, stimulating my visual cortex, inviting my attention. Some of them, there's some audible things. There are the dings that give buzzes at me. Ooh, what is this going to be? Some of them have red badges with little numbers on them. Dopamine. This is actually what happens. This is legitimately what happens. Who texted me? Who replied? The wheels start spinning on my digital slot machine. The magic of maybe is alive in my life. And this is all baked into the apps on purpose. It's called brain hacking. It's called addiction code. So many choices. Oh, I have a Facebook notification. Oh, okay, the first wheel stops spinning, dopamine. Oh, new stories there. Second wheel stops. Oh, let's see if anyone that has liked my last post. Anticipation builds. I wonder what comments my friends have left for me. The third wheel stopped. Wait, only 4 people liked my post? What? Wait a minute. Was it why? Was it something that I said? Only 2 comments? That's totally lame. No shares? What went wrong? I didn't win this time, and stress comes in. Cortisol is released. And so what they're doing is they are milking our emotions to keep us on the apps. Let's see. And this is actually what I call dopamine. Nope. You didn't get any dopamine that time. You got some stress hormones. And anxiety starts to build. And so what they'll do is they milk our emotions. And when this stress hormone is released into our blood, it causes us to have tension, stress, and we can become anxious. In fact, this is amazing. Some of these dopaminergic activities on our devices can actually spike our dopamine level 100%. Do you understand what that's on the level of? How do I say this carefully in the presence of young ears? That 100% infold in dopamine on our screens is equal to satisfying intimate relations with somebody that you really love and care for. That's the level now that we're dealing with. Where before, that's what was chased in the world. But that's what we can have in our pockets anytime we want. Some of the first-person shooter games, and some of the different games that, not just first-person shooter games, but all these multiplayer games and all these different ones that we can engage in, it will raise the dopamine level up to 400% in the brain. This is why they are so addictive. Let me contrast that with you. Let me compare something with you. Cocaine in the brain, 350%. It's just a game, it doesn't matter. No, you're jacking your brain. You're jacking your brain. Transform. Let me transform. Let me renew your mind, God says. No, I'm going to juice it, Lord. I'm going to jack it up so I can't even discern this little small voice. Do you see how this could be a problem? Some of you are struggling with the very thing I'm talking about, whether you're young or you're old, because the addiction is from little to old. It's all of us. It's not a young person problem exclusively. It's a human problem. Oh, give me a break, Christian. I've been on my phone for so long. I've even played the games. I don't get jacked like you're talking about. This is ridiculous. Okay. It is important to differentiate between ingesting mind-altering stimulants like drugs and alcohol and behavioral stimulants that also alter the brain. So behavioral addiction is actually much like substance addiction, but it's a newer option that wasn't available before. There wasn't a way where behavior addiction could rise to the level of substance addiction that were compelling enough for people to use it. However, with the advent of high-speed internet and the smartphones, that changed everything. For anything to be addicted, you must have 2 components. One is there is a behavior we enjoy doing in the short term, and we can engage in it compulsively. We go back to it over and over and over again. So now we live in a world which the previous thousands of years of human history have never had this option. Technology has become so advanced that we are able for the first time to deliver, listen, the mental and emotional rewards that a system needs to become addicted. Can You don't even have to take the drug. So now, if there's a behavior that I enjoy on my phone, and it gives me what I want emotionally and neurologically, I get that immediate feedback on my posts and my tweets and my snaps and my entertainment and my endless web surfing, and I'm able to do it anywhere compulsively because of fast Wi-Fi and amazing cellular networks now. I can get the immediate, rapid-fire dopamine feedback loop that we all desire, and we have all the necessary components now, which can lead to serious addiction problems. It's not like substance abuse, but it's just like substance abuse. And this was never possible before. Anybody a little concerned now? Do I have anybody's attention? 3 hands, praise the Lord. So think about this. I can now do anything that my little heart would want, including highly immersive experiences, first-person shooter games in real time with others, shopping, socializing, chatting, texting, emails, surfing, you name it. I can do it everywhere, all the time, right on a highly integrated, web-connected, sophisticated computer that fits in my pocket that has a harmless name of smartphone. It's just a phone. I just gave my kid a phone, so what? Friends, if we're going to allow our children to be online, then we need to be online parents with them. The potential now for addiction has now become optimized. Many of the grittier optics of the impaired substance-addicted person, they're not present with the tech-addicted person. Therefore, the addiction may not be perceived or even noticed or understood by those around us. So what we've done is we've learned that we like these online experiences because it enables us to escape our real-world realities and even our responsibilities. Don't worry, don't worry. We'll remind you if you have to step away for a moment. We will keep tugging on you, and we'll bring you back over and over and over again. We'll notify you if anybody on the planet posts on your wall. If anybody likes one of your pics, if any comments on any of your posts, we'll let you know. If a friend posts something, we'll let you know. If there's a new story, we'll let you know. If someone sends you a picture, we'll let you know. If it's your Facebook anniversary, we'll let you know. If someone sends you a snap, we'll let you know. If your snap streak is in danger of ending, as soon as you launch, we'll let you know. The notifications are the magic of baby. The main difference between the actual slot machines and the casinos is that they're not as addicted as our phones. Because you couldn't take the slot machine with you and take it out of the casino. You go to jail for that. But no, I can now take my digital slot machine with me everywhere I go, whether I'm young or old. 70% of 4-year-olds have their own smart device now. Are you joking me? Where's my phone? I need to set up a conference call. Of course not. Excuse me? What are we allowing them to do? Dopaminergic activities that is setting their brain up for potential addiction, which they can struggle with for the rest of their lives, my friends. 75% of us now get on our smartphones without even thinking about it. It's just our habit now. We just pull it out. The habit has been so effectively developed in us that we just do it without thinking now, which I suppose is the definition of a habit. When the iPhone came out in 2007, they were not as advanced as they are today, so we owned the iPhones. But now the iTech companies just over here in Silicon Valley have outpaced our minds and now the iPhones, if we're not careful, the smartphones, they own us. And here's the rub with it all. We're doing ourselves a heartbreaking disservice because many people have developed what's called a tolerance for this level of neuronal excitement, and this can lower our baseline of dopamine, which just gives us a sense of feeling good. We all have a baseline. And this can lower because of so much dopamine being secreted all the time, and our brain's going, I gotta do something. So it dials down these receptors, and now you don't even get the nice dopamine hit for doing something like going out for a hike, or hugging a grandmother, or high-fiving someone because you made a good shot with the basketball. You don't even experience life anymore, and the joys that it brings. Because it's dialing everything down. It depletes the joy in life that God wants us to experience. The capacity for just feeling good is eroding right before our eyes. And if you evaluate and look at the moods of young people, overall, it's down and just a little depressed now. Have you noticed that? Dopamine overstimulation. The brain has to save itself from going nuts, has to dial down the dopamine receptors, even start to remove them. Eventually, you've got to be, a young mind can come back, but as we get older, you might lose it forever. I think the devil's trying to turn us into people that cannot experience the joy of even salvation. Dr. Nicholas Kardaras, PhD, one of the world's foremost experts in addiction and leading expert on specifically kids, youth, and digital addiction. Here's what he states. Naturally dopaminergic activities, eating and sex, usually come only after effort and delay. But addictive drugs and addictive behaviors, like gambling and video gaming, provide a shortcut to this reward process, which floods the nucleus accumbens with dopamine without serving a biological function. We're just juicing. Unfortunately, nature hasn't provided an easy way to withstand that dopamine onslaught, so that when people become addicted, they experience a dopamine reduction or shutdown in order to give some relief to their overwhelmed receptor cells. Back to Cooper and Tristan Harris's interview. Harris says, there's a whole playbook of techniques that get you used to using this product for as long as possible. Cooper says, is Silicon Valley programming apps, or are they programming people? Inadvertently, whether they want to or not, they are shaping the thoughts and feelings and actions of people. They are programming people. There's always this narrative that technology is neutral, and that it's up to us to choose how we use it. That is just not true. It's not neutral. They want you to use it in particular ways and for long periods of time. Why? Because it's how they make their money. Never before in history have a handful of people at a handful of technology companies shaped how 2 billion people think and feel every day with the choices they make about these screens. In a document that he drafted after contemplating many questions in his life, when he was working at Google, he circulated it, and here's some statements. There are more users on Facebook than followers of Christianity. There are more people on YouTube than followers of Islam. I don't know a more urgent problem than this. He had a 144-page presentation that argued that the constant distractions of these apps and emails, etc., are weakening our relationships with each other and destroying our kids' ability to focus. It was circulated around Google. It was read, even by one of the founders, Larry Page. But Harris told 60 Minutes it didn't lead to any changes, and he had to, for conscious sake, quit working at Google. However, concerning Google, Harris was clear to point out, quote, it's not because anyone is evil or has bad intentions, it's because the game is getting attention at all costs. So along with Harris and many others, he's concerned that these products are shaping what 2 billion people think every day. I mean, that's more power than any government in history. Other industry insiders are starting to talk about this too. One of them is Ramsey Brown, a computer programmer who understands how the brain works and knows how to write code that will get the brain to do certain things. He has a doctorate in neuroinformatics, and he co-founded Dopamine Labs. Brown and his colleagues write very powerful computer code for apps. The programs are designed for neurological responses. He says this: when should I make you feel a little extra awesome? To get you to come back into the app longer. Cooper says, so you're trying to figure out how to get people coming back to use the screen? Exactly. You are part of a controlled set of experiments that are happening in real time across you and millions of other people. So this is interesting. The code that his company creates finds the best moment to give you one of those brain hacks, one of those rewards, and they're called likes. Anybody ever heard of likes? Some of you old people don't know what I'm talking about. But here's the reality. These companies, including his and others, they create mathematical algorithms that determine and watch you. By the way, I don't have time to get into this today, but for every single one of us that have an online life, a virtual version of ourselves has been set up. It's called AI, artificial intelligence, and it's real and it's here, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist. It's real. If you use little apps like Siri, that's all AI. You're interacting with a computer, not a lady with a microphone sitting it out. When you use maps, that's AI. When you use all of these different devices that we use all the time, it's largely AI driving everything. And indeed, these supercomputers look and target everything that we engage in. It's watching our click styles when we're on our click patterns, and how we scroll. And they even know if you're scrolling slowly on an article, you're reading it. If you're skimming, they know everything we're doing. What we buy, what we like, what restaurants we like, where we're navigating. The other day, I got into my vehicle to go to church, and up on my watch popped up, hey, English Oaks Church is only 12 miles away. Route there? It knows my habits. It knows on Saturday, around that same time every morning, this guy gets up and goes to church. Well, that's a good thing, amen? That I'm going to the right place. But guess what, my friends? Just think this through for a moment. I believe when there's going to be a day when we cannot buy or sell, I believe those days are coming, and we are all so hyper-connected, they already know everything about it. So actually, you will not be able to deny that you are a Sabbath keeper. We've been doing it for 10 years and we've been tracking you. Nice try. I mean, this goes so deep, it'll bend your brain. So, Ramsey Brown and other companies create this special type of code that goes and looks at who you are, how you act, and here's what they know. That there's no actual value for the like. However, there is a neurological vulnerability that we have, and an empathetical vulnerability, and that is we now really value the likes. And some people are even gauging their value because of these likes. But here's what's hideous if you ask me. They hold back. He says, for example, on Instagram, sometimes those likes come in a sudden rush. They, the companies and the companies that build these things, are holding some of them back from you to let you know later in a big burst. Well, why that moment? There's an algorithm that predicted for this user right now, we think we can see an improvement in his behavior. Stay on the app longer. If you give it to him in this burst instead of that burst. So what's happening is the likes don't happen organically. They don't happen because someone is sitting there right then looking at it and liking it. No. They are manipulating and juicing our dopaminergic experiences and creating stress and tension by the way they even release the likes. It's inappropriate. And they're not being held accountable. And when Brown says these experiments, he's generally talking about the millions of computer calculations done every moment by his company and other companies that they constantly tweak our online experience to make you come back for more. And these supercomputers are aimed right at our heads. The deck is stacked against us. Think about this. Thousands of very smart people writing genius-level code that's constantly modifying our online experiences, and it's all a manipulated experience. Anderson says, we're guinea pigs. You're guinea pigs. You are guinea pigs in the box, pushing the button, and sometimes getting the likes. And they're doing this to keep you in there. You don't pay for Facebook. Advertisers pay for Facebook. You get to use it because your eyeballs are what's being sold there. You're not the customer. You don't sign a check. You've never paid for anything to Facebook, but Coca-Cola does. So the longer they keep us on our screens, did you know that endless scroll was created just to keep us on our screens longer? The more data all these companies collect about us, the more targeted ads that we see, the more we buy. And in 2018 alone, advertisers spent $51 billion just on social media advertising. Brown says, you spend half of your time on Facebook just scrolling to find one good piece worth looking at. It's happening because they're engineered to become addicted. And this is one of the guys that writes the code. On 60 Minutes. So it's not like Christian Berdahl found this little thing that like nobody knows about. No, it's broadcast around the world, and we as a church and people are going, la 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 la, I don't want to hear that, no, no, no. Don't take away my dopamine pacifier. Right? Can I be honest with you this morning? Yeah. Or is this a place I can be honest with you? Whether you like it or not, I love you enough to tell you the truth. Amen? Amen. So this is by design, and this is happening because they're taking advantage of that built-in psychological vulnerability that Sean Parker said we are hijacking that, and we did it anyway. We knew what we were doing. We knew we would addict the world, but we didn't care. Why? Moolah, baby, moolah. They actually know what you like. They actually know what you don't like. And here is another rub. They purposely populate our feeds with what we don't like to keep us scrolling. They already know what you like. But they want to keep you on there longer and longer. Why? So they can put more ads in front of our for sale eyeballs. They will eventually let you find something that you like. They know that you like it. And guess what happens? Ah, more dopamine. We like the dopamine. And we stay on longer. And so this creates what's called a dopamine feedback loop. And we are fed neurologically, emotionally. We stay on that little digital hamster wheel for endless amounts of time. And it's all for their profit. It's manipulation, and we don't even realize it. We just thought we had some neat free access. You're almost saying it's like there's an addiction code. Yeah, that's the case. And since we figured out to some extent how these pieces of the brain handle addiction and how they're working, people have figured out how to juice them further and how to bake that information into the apps. Dr. Kardaris, I think my time is gone, isn't it? I have 5 minutes? Oh, praise the Lord. Okay. I have 5 minutes. We'll be done in probably 7 or 8. I apologize. Dr. Nicholas Kardaris, the expert of tech and children, he says, this hardwired thirst for novelty, that's the new, can be overwhelming in the information age, overstimulated. When every hyperlink tweet, text, email, snap, and Instagram can be opportunity to experience something new. As with an alcoholic in a liquor store, or a chocolate lover at Willy Wonka's. The multitude of opportunity for novelty, the new, that magic of maybe, can be exhaustingly hyper-stimulating. So then where does modern digital technology, which plays off of these intersecting human needs of connection, reward, and novelty, leave us? The short answer, addicted. This is an addiction expert. Or at the very least, vulnerable to the potential for screen addiction. And while some will blame our collective tech addiction on our own personal failings, like weak willpower, why can't you just overcome this? Tristan Harris is quick to redirect us back to the software itself. You could say that it is my responsibility to exert self-control when it comes to digital usage. Amen? Absolutely. And I believe with God's help we can. And we can even find a balance with it. He said, but that's not acknowledging that there's 1,000 people whose job it is to break down whatever responsibility I can maintain. They are experts. Silicon Valley has engagement specialists. They work with psychologists. They work with PhDs. They work with people with addiction. And they hire them and pay top dollar to figure out how do we get these people to stay on their devices. And if we're not careful, we lose mentally, emotionally, psychologically, and spiritually. Like I started off with, there's a very real, active battle going on for our minds. Do you see it? A little bit? Do you see it? We have God on one side. We have Satan on the other. And both are at war for your mind. Both want your soul. God has some really great plans for you, if you choose. The devil has some really destructive plans for you, if you choose. The Creator God on one side, who hates and opposes God because we are God's loved creation. We are God's sought-after creation. So much so that Christ himself said, I need to go and save my creation, so I will go and become one of the creation to save them. You need your mind to chew on something? Chew on that for a while. Wonderful, the sacrifice and humiliation of our Creator God. So both sides have plans for our minds. God wants to restore. He wants to rebuild. Satan wants to break down and destroy. Perhaps when it comes to our tech, you can see just how powerful Romans 12:2 is. Be not conformed to this tech world. In other words, be careful. Don't let anyone hack your brain. Be careful. But be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Who needs to be transformed in their mind? We all do, right? Especially when you start to survey and think, how many hours am I spending on all this stuff? And is it actually leading to any good in my life? And some of it might. So I'm not against social media. I'm not against tech. I'm against technology companies hijacking my brain. Amen? Amen. I'm against technology companies manipulating my online experiences, giving me the thought process that I'm actually having a free access to all this information. All of it, even our search criteria, is biased. Everything is. The game is rigged. I think this is partly why God said, come out of her, my people, that you not partake of her sins. What God is saying here is that if you're not careful with that beautiful mind that I gave you, the most important thing that you own, protecting it from hackers, you will be conformed to the world. but I can transform your mind. I can fix you, he says. I can help you. I can even renew you in my image. I can give you a character like me. I can fix you. I can give you an image that will last. Not the popular image for today that's here today and gone tomorrow. But I can train you up, and I can grow you up, and I can make you something that the world looks at and says, what does that man or woman have? Christ living within them. I can renew you in my image. I will transform you if you let me. I will regenerate that hijacked mind that you have. Even if it's developed problematic habits. Even if you become addicted and the dopamine is overwhelming you, I can bring you back to a state of health and balance. I can restore peace back in your numb mind. I can give you joy back that you're losing because of all the overstimulating effects of the dopamine and my body, the protective mechanisms that I put in you, Christian. It's dialing it down to preserve your sanity. I can give you a thinking mind and heart again, where you can come and we can reason together in the Scriptures, and you will see that what I have in store for you is actually what you want and what you need. I can restore joy back to your life. And then you will prove what is that good and acceptable and the perfect will of God. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers. And now, I want you to understand, I am not prepared to say that people working in Silicon Valley are the rulers of darkness. I'm not saying that. But I am prepared to say there is a great power over there and in the world, and they're not being held accountable or responsible for how they are wielding that persuasive, brain-changing power. In fact, right now, even the co-founder of Facebook, Chris Hughes, is talking with the Federal Trade Commission and the Department of Defense. They're talking right now about suing Facebook and breaking it up because of everything it's doing. When the co-founder says, Houston, we have a problem, we have a problem. And as a Christian, I believe with all of my heart that Satan, the adversary, is trying to erase the image of God in his people by turning us into entertainment zombies and junkies, where we can't even think outside of the online moment for a moment. So it's left to us to not trust that the technology companies are going to fix it all. They're starting to make some strides, but it's not enough. We can't leave it to them. It's left to us to protect this beautiful mind God gave us. It's left to us to put some protections in place. So be careful with your screens. Don't let high-tech control you. I know it's possible. I myself am now experiencing a non-addictive online experience where tech doesn't control you, but now you control it. It's taken me a while, but thank God He's showing me some tricks and tips. And so, this message has been taken from a brand new series that we are working on entitled Digital Dopamine, How iTech is Transforming Our Minds. If there's anyone here that thinks this is an important subject, if you have any thoughts, if you have any ideas, please come up to me. Share with me what you've learned. If you think this needs to get out there, and I'm sure, by the way, we're going to be recording very quickly a whole series for the world and one for the church, because both camps are in trouble. I think this is important. Perhaps consider partnering with us. So, can you see now why tech insiders, tech company leaders, technologists and psychologists and sociologists are so concerned? Are you starting to see? Friends, this is just one of the secrets that we've decoded this morning to help you survive on planet Earth. Thank you. Amen.
you, Christian Berdahl, for that message. It was very powerful and I was blessed tremendously. I just want to remind everybody to come back after lunch because there will be another powerful message. And to end off this program, I'm going to be singing a song called Fighting for Me, and I just pray that you guys are blessed. Can outlast and hide. I need the kind of love that is willing to fight. When the cold wind gets up and my strength's not enough, I need you showing up like never before. This battle from my heart, you took on from the start, and you are the peace. And oh, you will never stop fighting for me when I can't fight for myself. Every word is a promise you keep, and you love me like nobody else. You stand up for me in the darkest night when my faith is weak. You're still by my side. You will never stop fighting for me. Ooh, yeah, yeah. In the perfect timing, you make all things right. Oh, your pain is still lying in this heart of mine. When the going gets tough and my strength's not enough, I need you show me up like never before. This battle for my heart, you took on from the start, and you are the peace when my eyes are sore. And oh, you will never stop fighting for me when I can't fight for myself. Every word is a promise you keep, 'cause you love me like nobody else. You stand up for me in the darkest night when my faith is weak. You're still by my side. You will never stop fighting for me. Never stop fighting. Your love is winning me over. Your heart is pulling me closer. Your love is winning me over. Your heart is pulling me closer. You will never stop fighting for me, fighting for me. Every word is a promise you keep. Oh, you will never stop fighting for me when I can't fight for myself. Every word is a promise you keep, 'cause you love me like nobody else. You stand up for me in the darkest night when my faith is weak. You're still by my side. You will never stop fighting for me. Never stop fighting for me.
Thank you, Lorraine Bird. And thank you, Christian Berdahl. I'll read one statement for you all. We must be constantly meditating upon the Word, eating it, digesting it, and by practice, assimilating it, so that it is taken into the life current. Saturate yourself with it
to the point it gets into the bloodstream. Something I've been challenging people, especially young people, in the past few weeks is if you're trying to start Bible reading, Bible study habits, but simply just Bible reading, take 4 weeks where you take your phone or a timer. If you're struggling with your phone, take some sort of timer and turn it to 60 minutes. Read the Word for 60 minutes. Doesn't matter where, New Testament, Old Testament, or just a promise book. But the idea is get in the Word, get your brain just digesting that a lot, and see where it goes from there. I'll read it one more time. We must be constantly meditating upon the Word, eating it, digesting it, and by practice, assimilating it, so that it is taken into the life current. So I'll extend the same challenge or same exercise to all of you. Beside your devotional life, even beside your Bible study life, just set a timer and just go for it. Read. Don't highlight, just read. Just take it in, just bask in it. You can highlight and underline during your Bible study time or your devotional time, but just take a time where you can just bathe in it. Anyway, appreciate that. Lunch is just slightly delayed, and so what we encourage you to do is don't go too far. Feel free to stretch, use the bathroom, get a drink of water, these kinds of things. But don't go too far away because there will be food very, very soon. And not only that, again, the next message by Christian Berdahl is at 1:15. Tentatively, if we need to extend that a little bit based on lunch, we can do that by a few minutes. But again, don't go too far. With that, let's have a blessing on food. Lord Jesus, we thank you that you play for keeps when you battle for our minds. And today we just want to say, Lord, have your way with us and have our minds and give us the strength and the power to do the things necessary on our part to protect this most important asset and to fully surrender to you this asset. So thank you, God. Transform our minds, make us like Jesus. And Lord, we ask that your blessing would rest upon the food as well, and may it nourish us, and may we apply the energy that we gain from it to continuing to pursue you. And that is our prayer. We ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen.
Is that we have sacrificed conversation. We sacrifice conversation for mere connection. So we sacrifice actual communion and conversation on a deeper level for just mere connection. We shortchange ourselves, and over time we forget this and we actually stop caring. Because when we're face to face with somebody, or even better than just texting or social media, when we're actually even FaceTiming, that's a better version, because I can actually see you, I can hear you, I can read your expressions. The challenge that we have is when we continue to use social media over and over and over again, we start to decrease our ability to actually communicate on that deeper level. So the intention with social media when it was originally designed was never to actually replace face-to-face communion with each other. But that's what's largely happening now. Mark Zuckerberg, who invented Facebook and still is the CEO of Facebook, he said the goal when we went into it was not to make an online community, but a mirror for the real community that existed in real life. Notice, their goal was not to make an online community because they actually understood that you cannot have an actual healthy, productive online community. But that's what we've tried to make it become. And we're having problems today, including mental health, increases in loneliness, depression, and even suicide, because this kind of mediated social interaction does not fill the love tank, if you will. Unfortunately, today, social media has become the way some people socialize, period. They'll meet, establish, and try to grow and even maintain a relationship all online, with never taking the next step to actually never meet in person. That's how it's starting to change now. My son himself, my youngest son Micah, he had one of these experiences to where he met somebody online and they started creating a friendship, which of course you can. I'm not saying that's not possible, you can. But it was mediated and was never face to face, and just by the medium itself, it's very limited, right? And so they began developing a friendship. In fact, he even started saying to me, I think I want her to be my girlfriend. I said, well, that's amazing, but you've never even met her face to face. But the new social paradigm is that this is socialization. This is socializing. No. It's a mediated version, and it can be very problematic. Because the medium of social media, like any medium, actually changes who we are and how we engage with one another. And our thinking and our lives over the last decade have actually been changed little by little by little. Professor Marshall McLuhan, who coined the famous adage, the medium is the message. His thought, it's right on target with social media. He says, the medium is the message. Meaning in the long run, the medium's content matters less than the medium itself in how influencing how we think and we act. So a popular medium like social media or television or movies or whatever it may be, it actually molds what we see and how we see it. I started to share with you earlier that even our news feeds are being fed to us in certain manipulative ways. It is moving our thinking whether we like it or not. And so this popular medium is actually changing how I engage with people and what I engage in with them. And eventually, if we use it enough, it can change who we are. And indeed, that is happening. It's happening as individuals, and it's even happening as a society. There is a very real reason why in our country we are becoming very polarized. It's actually by design. It's actually happening because of a couple of companies. And that's another message I can't get into with you today. 1 in 3 Americans say they are more likely now to meet someone new online than in the real world. So the medium itself can change the way that we meet people now, and it is. In fact, the medium can even change the way that we navigate our days. We had a friend come to us, a close friend, and she told us how she needed to take a break from Facebook because she realized she was thinking through her day in status updates. It's true. She would determine whether or not she would do something or not do something, even with her children, this activity or that activity, based on whether it would be a good post or not. Not good for the kids, but a good post. I've seen it with my own eyes at a swimming pool. A lady came, I wish I would have been smart enough to videotape it, but then that would have just been me, so I didn't want to do it. Because then you could have posted and it would have been cyberbullying. But anyway, what this lady did, she showed up, her daughter, in the cutest little, she had to have been 8 or 9 years old, in this cute little bathing suit she had on, matching little sunglasses, a little fedora, little hat, or whatever you call it. And I was like, she's so cute. I was like, look at her. My wife was like, this is amazing. And so they spread out the blanket, they put all the little things there, they got the little bit of food out, and all that stuff. And the mother had her her get into the water in her little floating inner tube thing and sit there. The girl wanted to go swimming. Because that's what you do at the pool, right? No, we do a photo shoot at the pool. Because you're 9 years old and I'm trying to make you into a social media celebrity. And this mother went through this whole process of taking the photos, doing all kinds of stuff, and getting in the water carefully, getting out of the water carefully, sit here right here now, sweetheart, and she's doing this, and she's like, okay, have fun, you're having fun. She's like, it was totally staged. And then they didn't even stay, because Mom, we had to go, honey, you got gymnastics now, let's go. And the girl's like, can I swim? No, we don't want to get your hair wet. No, we have gymnastics next. What? This happens a lot. This happens a lot. Young and old are thinking in status updates, and we're so concerned about snapping the moment and grabbing the moment that we miss out on the moment. Wait a minute, look at that beautiful sunset on a little bitty screen. I have like panoramic vision. Oh, that's so beautiful as my eyes bug out of my head on my retina display. God gave me a retina and He gave me the display. Isn't that crazy? When you think about it, it's like, He's right, that's what's going on. Oh man. Our thinking has shifted as digital immigrants. Now, what's a digital immigrant? A digital immigrant is those of us who are at least 30 years or older. I'm 50 years old, so I'm a digital immigrant. And we've migrated our lives into the digital world from our more analog or tangible world. So meaning we grew up in this analog age before the widespread of digital use and technology. And so we've immigrated into the digital world. So we're a little more skeptical of this idea. You can find good, healthy community online. Yeah, probably not. Why? Because we know the difference. Because we had the regular, healthy social interactions before. Hopefully, we had our feet firmly planted in real communion and community and communication. But it's not so with the digital natives. Digital natives are those who are born into or brought up during the age of digital technology and therefore are familiar with computers and the internet from an early age. And this is just normal life to them. They have never needed their thinking shifted. They are raised with it. This is social life, and 2/3 of teens now would rather chat online with their friends than converse with their friends in person. That's approaching, that's 2/3 of young people say, I'd rather chat. Why? Because this is social now. They would rather be online chatting than actually face-to-face. In fact, it's even very commonplace to send a text to the person sitting in the same room. And you know I'm right. Parents even do it. Don't even call across the house anymore. Sweetheart, can you help me with this? Amazing. Dr. Turtle said over and over, she hears people say, I would rather text than talk now. The medium's changing us. Wait a second. I'm sorry. I think I need to be face-to-face with people, especially if I even want to potentially lead them to a relationship with Jesus Christ. No, I'm going to text witness to them. She says, people can get so used to being shortchanged out of real conversation, so used to getting by with less, that they can become almost willing to dispense with real live people altogether. This is from a professional psychological counselor, a psychologist who works with a lot of people, and she's saying, I'm seeing a problem. People don't know how to engage, and they don't want to do it. Why? It's just too hard. I thought we always wanted to just go and be with each other. The thing I wanted to do as a young person was actually leave my house and go hang with my friends. Now it's I don't want to leave my bedroom and I'm going to chat with my friends. Ew. With a big fat ew. Even being in each other's presence, but disconnected with each other is now very normal. Alone, together. This is now social life. Many have never developed the necessary interpersonal communication skills that are needed to engage with their peers. Now it's the most natural thing to be online, even in the presence of others, but we're never even hardly rarely engaging. You could sit in the same room having a totally different experience, and then by the time it's time to leave, you go, okay, well, still hanging out, bye. Or you look up and you go, where'd they go? Yeah. Now it's the most natural thing. Not healthy, but natural thing. Why? The medium has changed us. Or the medium groomed us from when we were children. We're together, but we're disconnected. We're alone together. We are in our own digital worlds, but we're disconnected from each other while we sit right next to each other, forsaking those that are right there with us so we can chat with somebody else who's not with us. I mean, come on, isn't that kind of weird? It really is when you stop for a moment and just think about it. When you just take a pause for a split second, which I know is difficult to do because it's calling your name right now. Do you realize the average attention span now is 8 seconds long? Some argue it's less than a goldfish. I saw an article. I was thinking I was going to put it into the presentation. I thought, it's probably bad science. We're going to leave it out. But sadly, many digital natives, they haven't had a rich, deep, face-to-face experience and communion, so they don't know what they're actually missing out on. But unlike us digital immigrants, they don't have anything to compare it to, because this has been life for them if we haven't been careful with them as parents and engaged them in social activity. You know, I think frankly nowadays, homeschool, my kids were raised homeschool all the way through high school. But we made active plans every single week, multiple things, where our children were engaged with other young children and other teens. Amen. Going to school, in a good school, that's a great thing. If the school has boundaries set and governs their digital use. Otherwise, they'll sit out in the schoolyard or on lunch break and they're not even engaging or orienting, they're all doing this. That's not socialization. Being a teacher and being an educator actually has very little to do with the actual content that they're actually learning. Because a lot of it's going to be forgotten anyway. Especially with the memory problems we're seeing today because of all the fractured learning issues we have. Our attention is fractured and we can't even get into deep learning anymore. And teachers, you know I'm right. You see it. How do I get my kids to even read anything anymore? God bless you. You have a big job. I don't have all the answers. I have some of them, but not all. And so, for those of us who are digital immigrants, and we know there's a better way to socialize, there's a better way for us to engage, it's left to us to give our young people these wonderful experiences where they can engage with one another and actually develop those skills where that becomes natural and not the unnatural. Because here's what happens. When we don't have those real interactions, we don't have the real face-to-face communication, then it grows our loneliness and our isolation, which can lead to depression and even suicide. But I don't want you to think that this is a young person problem. No. We digital immigrants have filled out and completed our digital immigration process, if you will, and we have fully immigrated. We too are losing our grip on face-to-face communion. Our brains love the overstimulation just like the young brain. We love it. But it's at the cost of real interaction with our loved ones. It's at the cost of sitting with those that are sitting right next to us. What we actually all desire, that many of us have forgotten or never knew, we actually desire meaningful, deep, interpersonal communication. This is what we all want. It's actually what we crave in our soul, to be complete, joy-filled human beings. We all want to be connected, communicating and communing with one another. God said, don't forsake the gathering together of yourselves. There's a mental health reason He said that. We want to understand. We want to be understood. Parents and spouses and children and friends, we all want to connect and we want to be understood. Our neighbors and our co-workers, church members, even God wants to be understood. Have you ever thought about that? He says, come and let us reason together. Why? He wants us to understand who He is and the plan He has for us. So even God wants interpersonal communication. And He wants us to choose to commune with Him. He longs to commune with us. Effective, meaningful communication. It's hard though. It's complex. Looking into the eyes of a person that we're communicating with and reading their body language, watching their facial expressions, listening to the intonations of their voice, and then putting it all together because we've developed these skills, I hope. We try to put it all together, hoping we can comprehend what they're trying to say. And we just cannot find this depth of healthy, soul-filling communication and communion on our screens. Continuing in her book, Alone Together, Turkle writes, when technology engineers intimacy, relationships can be reduced to mere connections. That's what's happening. And then easy connection becomes redefined as intimacy. And that's what's going on. We think that we can have an intimate, amazing, healthy relationship merely online. This is what the digital natives understand. If the healthy socialization and socializing has not been modeled for them and encouraged. And since this is now the world that we live in, easy connection, and now easy connection has become redefined as intimacy, this is intimacy now. What a ripoff. Right? I mean, what a ripoff. We're selling our kids down the social river. And ourselves as well. And effective communication has always been a necessary component of strong interpersonal relationships. But it's proven a struggle for us as human beings. Even in person. But it's terrifically more difficult online. Dr. Albert Mehrabian, Professor Emeritus of Psychology at UCLA, widely known by his publications on the relative importance of verbal and nonverbal messages, through his studies found that 7% of any message is conveyed through words. Only 7%. 38 through certain vocal elements, the way that I say something, and 55 through nonverbal elements, facial expressions, gesture, and posture. So what that means, 93% of communication is nonverbal, or not the words. 93%. No wonder online communication can get real dicey. Because all we have is 7% of communication. The words, right? And in an attempt to try to help us put some sort of context and body language to our online communication, emojis were created. Emoticons. That's why we have them, by the way. There's a psychological reason it's there. Not just because, they're cool. No. Because it's an attempt, listen, to add some sort of context or expression to what we're saying. Make sense? Yeah. So when you load it up with a whole bunch of different ones, that's really confusing. Because you're not going to when you're talking to somebody. Right? But that's like what we're doing. When we have all these different emoticons and we're going, whoa, oh, are they upset? Are they funny? Are they being joking? Are they, I don't know. My brain goes, why? What's going on? Because we're not even communicating well with these little emotional contexts. What does it mean when someone writes back in all caps? Are they yelling? Are they excited? Why does Dad always do cap locks? Is Dad just irritated all the time? Well, he is. Because he's not getting his dopamine fix enough. And so, or maybe they're just excited. Maybe they're just emphasizing a point. The problem is we don't know. Or how about this one? You write out a really long text, which, by the way, is like the cardinal sin of today. Young people, am I right? Yeah. Who has time to read a 30-second text? I mean, bro, you're taking me from my life. My 8-second life. Yeah. So you write out this whole long text and someone responds, K. You couldn't even write out capital OK. Just K. What? I mean, imagine if I sat there talking to somebody and giving them all this information and trying to commune and talk with them and they go, okay. Okay, apparently they're not interested. But see, this is what we're doing online, yes or no? We are making determinations on frightening little bits of information and just some text. In fact, I can't even be bothered to hardly respond to you. Why? Well, I live in the me age now, and I'm the most important thing in the universe. And if you're trying to trouble me and I gotta read a 30-second text, bro, I don't have time. Because, you know, after all, I'm a sophomore in high school. And you guys are like, this is so true. Those are nervous laughs. He's talking about me. Oh, yeah, they're having that problem, not me. How about this? When you send someone a text, what do you do after you send a text? Wait. Ah, there's an honest soul right there. You wait. What are you waiting for? The little balloons, right? With the 3 little dots. Dopamine. Actually, that was put there on purpose because it gives you that dopamine reward. It was never there before, but someone goes, I got an idea. No. But here, you're waiting for the ... and you'll sit there and go, and then you act like, okay, yeah, I'm not that addicted. No. I'm going to set it up, but if I don't see it, how would I know? Because then it probably won't bust because my window's open, and you're, okay. And then, it goes away. What's going on, man? We're like being hijacked. Amen? Think about that. We're sitting there like, oh, I'm going to get that. Oh, man. So what does it mean when they don't respond? There are people that will get absolutely upset because you didn't even take the time to respond. Or if it took you 7 minutes to respond, I know it's an eternity, but 7 minutes, that's really long compared to 8 seconds. But 7 minutes, why didn't you respond to me? I was in the bathroom, leave me alone. I was in the shower and I didn't have my waterproof case on my phone. So miscommunications are commonplace when it comes to messaging. And frankly, for us digital immigrants, knowing what the LOLs, the BRBs, and the ROFLs, and all the MNLP, XYZ, FBI, CIA, all that stuff, what does it all mean? It can actually make a digital immigrant's head hurt a little bit, and it can create embarrassing moments. As in this exchange between mother and daughter. Your grandmother just died, LOL. Mom, how is that funny? What are you talking about? This is serious. Mom, LOL means laugh out loud. Oh my gosh, I thought it meant lots of love. I sent that to everyone. So those are kind of funny, but they can create some situations, obviously. But I use that as an illustration I have 10 minutes where you're joking me. Wow, I'm on slide 44 of 82. Okay, let's go fast. So, but what happens when we have this limited type of communication and it fails altogether? When I'm fine doesn't mean I'm fine. Amen? I'm fine, Mom. School's good. I'm fine. Heart. School's good. Smile. I love you. But since I sent that little heart and was sitting along with, everything else, everything must be okay. It means it's all good. Sharon and Celine exchanged texts with her daughter, who was in college. They chatted back and forth, and Mom asking how things were going, and daughter answering with positive statements followed by emoticons showing smiles and hearts and happiness. Later that night, her daughter attempted suicide. In the days that followed, it came to light, she had been holed up in her dorm room, crying, showing signs of deep depression. A completely different reality from the one she was conveying in a mediated type of communication. So she was experiencing a completely different reality from the one she was conveying in the text and on her Facebook posts and on her tweets and on her snaps. And this is where social media can get really dicey. It's only when we can hear the tone of the voice and we can look into someone's eyes, their eyes, that we will know that I'm fine doesn't really mean I'm fine. You follow what I'm saying? Overflowing in technology today, anyone can hide behind texts. We can hide behind email. We can hide behind our snaps and our Facebook posts. And we can project any image that we want to, creating an illusion of our choosing. We can be whoever we want to be, even if it's a flat-out lie. And without the ability to receive nonverbal cues, our audiences are none the wiser. Our parents are none the wiser. Our even closest friends are none the wiser. What? You tried to kill yourself? You said everything was all right. So this creates an unprecedented paradox. With all the powerful social media technologies that we have at our fingertips, and even though we are hyper-connected more than we've ever been connected, why is it that we have an increase in loneliness and depression? What's going on? This is why God tells us to not forsake the assembling together of ourselves, as the manner of some is online, but exhorting one another. That means encouraging one another. And so much more as you see the day of Jesus Christ coming. The latest studies have found an increased use with social media. There's a direct correlated increase in anxiety, loneliness, depression, and suicide. According to the most recent statistics, loneliness is now at, quote, epidemic levels in the United States. In a health survey of over 20,000 people over the age of 18, almost half reported, 46%, sometimes or always feeling lonely now. Wait a minute, we're connecting all the time. Shouldn't that fix it? Not this kind of connection. Why? It's not real. It's virtual. It's mediated. It can help me stay in contact with my aunt that lives on the other side of the country, but that's not communion. That's not what fills the soul. That's not what helps my mental health. Making sense? Not against it. I think it's amazing. That's my alarm. I have to leave. See, that's a good use of technology. Leave for a concert. 5 more minutes. I'm denying my tech. 46% sometimes say or always they feel lonely. 47% feel left out. 47% do not have a meaningful in-person social interaction or conversation on a daily basis. That creates a problem. With 43% feeling isolated, the loneliest young adults between the ages of 18 and 21. Our college students are suffering the most. Even when we're on screens with people, there's actually this feeling of not being fully seen. It's a psychological problem that we have. We weren't face to face. And that's why when you go on break, you just want to go home and see mom and dad, or you want to go see your brother, sister, or your best friend. That's a good response to have when it's time to go on break. When you're done with your work, you want to get home and see those people that you love the most. That's the healthy, natural response that fills the soul. This mediated version, it never quite ever gets us there. And we don't understand why we're struggling. These technologies add a new dimension to the potential for loneliness and anxiety by offering us a way to directly quantify friendships now. Viewing the friendship networks of others for comparison, you can compare your own popularity with that of your peers. So it's easy to see how technology use can become a yardstick for one's self-worth now. And this is a fantastic book by PhD Dr. Tim Bono. It's called When Likes Aren't Enough. When we derive a sense of worth based on how we are doing relative to others, we place our happiness in a variable that's completely beyond our control. So we could be popular today, but not tomorrow. Popular opinions, if you haven't figured it out yet, you will. It changes like the weather. You've probably heard the idiom of keeping up with the Joneses, right? Or you want to keep up with the neighbors. Well, that's how it used to be. But now online, we're not just trying to keep up with the people that we know in our social sphere. We're trying to keep up with hundreds, maybe even thousands of different people, and it's overwhelming. It's too much pressure. Peer pressure to the nth degree now, like never before on the planet. So it's a very different animal. We endlessly compare, or we secretly stalk, or even voyeuristically